Welcome to the Fear and Greed Business Interview. I'm Sean Aylmer. Last year, the Matildas set new records in Australia for television audiences with millions tuning in to watch. The numbers were staggering, but it really drove home the point that the way we measure TV audiences in Australia is a little out of date. A lot of people don't watch linear broadcast TV. Plenty are now catching up using catch-up video, watching it whenever they want, or streaming on various devices. So, this week, after a number of years of development, the TV industry introduced a major overhaul of audience measurement. For many of us, the numbers are an interesting piece of trivia, how many people are watching any given show, which ones are hits, etc. But for media companies and advertisers, these numbers are big business. Karen Halligan is the Chief Executive Officer of OzTAM, the company responsible for measuring TV audiences in Australia. OzTAM is independent, but it's owned by the major commercial networks 7, 9 and 10. Karen, welcome to Fear and Greed.
Thank you very much, Sean. It's lovely to be with you.
So how do you work with all those? 7, 9 and 10? I thought they were ferocious competitors.
You know, they are ferocious competitors, but when it comes to the television industry at large and the importance of it to the Australian community, I think they're pretty united on making sure that they're sending out the right messages to the right people at the right time.
So presumably the total audience is the Australian population, however big that is, 26, 27 million or so. How does this new system work?
So, look, previously we were reporting out of Metro TV independently, the regional television markets audience were being cut independently, BVOD numbers were being put out independently, but we weren't looking at consolidated audience viewing. And as you sort of mentioned before, viewing behaviours have changed significantly. So a lot of people are migrating from linear television into BVOD viewing, into different devices, so on their phone, through connected televisions or through iPads. So what we've done with the changes to the system is we've actually aggregated all of that information, looked at when they're viewing different programs. So as again, some people watch it in the moment when it's on air, particularly things like sport. But when you get to other programs like reality TV or some other programs specifically, then people watch it in catch-up time a few days after the initial event. So the new numbers bring all of that together to give a complete picture of what's actually happening from content from the individual broadcasters and how far that's actually travelling to reach Australian people.
Is there a sense of how much of the audience is not real-time free-to-air? So my household, actually everything we do is stream, so I don't have the ability to flick between channels as I used to. I probably need to set up my TV, but there it is. Is there a sense of how much is real-time free-to-air? So I'm actually watching the TV show as its first broadcast versus the rest?
Look, the way that people consume content is changing all of the time. So the answer to that question is really dependent on what's going on at that specific point in time. So if you look at things like the Australian Open, which has happened recently, a huge proportion of the population were watching it in real time. So finals and things like that, people will watch less in the catch-up context. When it gets to other programs, that actually changes. So there's sort of no real set specific measure as to how many people are watching in real time and what the delay is, because it does actually change dependent on what the content is at that specific point in time from the broadcasters.
What drove this? Is this coming from the networks or is this coming from the advertisers wanting better data?
Look, I think there's both of those things that are playing out at the moment. So, you know, look, it's in the interest of the broadcasters. I think that's be no surprise to anyone. And, you know, questions get asked around, you know, broadcasters pushing out their numbers. But the reality of the matter is we haven't actually been giving the complete picture historically. So I think it's a pretty reasonable sort of approach from the broadcasters to make sure that they're actually putting out that complete picture moving forward. And as you sort of mentioned, it does drive revenues. It does drive the success of the individual programmings and how they actually commission shows into the future. So from a broadcaster perspective, the data is incredibly important, that it's accurate and comprehensive and reflects total viewing. From an advertiser point of view, it's more important than ever for data-driven marketing to come into play. So, you know, advertisers need to pivot the way they spend their money. They need to have a look at how they capture audiences that are fragmenting and consuming media in different ways. So I think it's equally important for them to make informed decisions as to where people are at any point in time and how best to invest their money when they sit down at the boardroom table with CEOs and CFOs.
Stay with me, Karen. We'll be back in a minute. I'm speaking to Karen Halligan, Chief Executive Officer of OzTAM. I'd imagine this is bringing the network community, I was going to say, into the 21st century. That's probably a bit harsh. But again, some of the big tech platforms who are incredibly data rich, does this allow the networks to better compete with that social media crowd?
Yeah, look, I think without question, the investment that's gone into data from the TV networks to actually get this picture is for them to actually be able to compete with the changes in consumer behaviour. I think that one of the credits to the television industry is there's a really rigorous independent approach to measurement and how they actually do that. So we put a lot of time and effort into independent verification of the data and what actually goes into the models and how all of these are born. We do independent audits of how the information is sort of pulled together. So it's really important that we have a robust and transparent independent measurement metric for the television industry to justify spend. And does that help the television industry compete with all channels, not just the big tech companies, but other channels? Yeah, it definitely does.
Presumably advertisers can target much better under this system the customers that they're trying to reach?
Yeah, without question. So they'll get a better understanding of who's watching, when they're watching, on what device and at what time. So is it in real time or is it in delay? So that's definitely beneficial.
So let's face it only started this week, so we're only a few days in, maybe a bit early for a response so far, but presumably there's been a lot of industry consultation before this occurred.
Yeah. So look, I think the response is pretty early days. The television industry have been, obviously really embracing of actually getting the true picture out there to their audiences. We've worked collaboratively with the Media Federation of Australia that represents all of the advertising agencies who actually invest on behalf of their clients. So we've been consulting with them. Worth noting, this is the beginning of a year of change for the television industry. So what we're doing at this initial point is getting people familiar with the numbers. Over the course of the next 12 months, there's a whole lot of system upgrades and integrations that are going on within the agency landscape to get clients ready to be able to trade and transact on these new numbers. So it's kind of a year of evolution for the industry. And then towards the end of the year, we're rolling out a product called OzTAM, which allows clients to get a true picture of reach and frequency across the different broadcasters across one unique platform. And I think that will be really beneficial for advertisers moving forward towards the end of the year.
Okay, so Karen, this time next year, we're going to invite you back on to see exactly where you're up to. But is the goal that in a year's time or so, it's much easier for media buyers or advertisers or agencies to find the audience that they want to target?
Yeah, well, look, I think ease of transaction and ease of buying of broadcaster inventory is incredibly important to the agency community, and I think in turn also to the marketeers who invest their money. I think historically it's been quite a process to do sort of television and different buying inventory. It's been on a journey of improvement and optimisation. And without question, we're going to look at ways to how we can optimise available inventory to advertisers and insights that support that.
Okay, so this is obviously a first in Australia. What about the rest of the world? Are they on this journey too? I'm sure they're on the journey. Are they further advanced than we are?
Yeah, no, look, I think it's a great question, Sean. Some of our team, of the OzTAM team, went over to the Global Measurement Conference. That is actually a real thing that actually happens. And at that conference, the feedback was that we were the envy of many countries. Everyone is on the journey. There are different statuses in different markets. So I think in the US, they've got a much more fragmented currency setup with different people trading off their own currencies or variations. Other countries are also in the process of providing consolidated numbers across BVOD and television. But to my understanding, and we have been told this at that conference and more recently, we are the first country to be able to provide consolidated overnight complete ratings, at a national level with BVOD included. So we are leading the way in this territory.
Good luck with that, Karen, and thank you for talking to Fear and Greed.
No problem. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
That was Karen Halligan, CEO of OzTAM. This is the Fear and Greed Business Interview. Join us every morning for the full episode of Fear and Greed, Australia's best business podcast. I'm Sean Aylmer. Enjoy your day.